as he said, I'm a music video historian. I've been working on a book for quite a while where I've been interviewing different people from the scene, and I've interviewed over 70 music video directors from the heyday. So let's get started with what is a music video? Well, we can agree that it is music and it is visuals in a broadcast medium. And you would be surprised how many people are very stickler for what the definition of this is. I mean, if it's on film and it's not on TV, is it a music video? If it's not video, is it a video, etc. So I stick to this because there's so much that happens early on that affects everything else. Usually this talk that I give is 2.5 hours long, so I will be skipping certain parts, and you'll find that the area of the dawn of man to 1970 is pretty fast. The early forms of music video include silent films, which had music accompanying them, the early talkies as well, jazz films, the jazz era. There were various shorts with people like Fats Waller and Billie Holiday that people would see at the movies. Merry Melodies and Silly Symphonies. Did anybody ever remember seeing these cartoons that would come on? Those are precursors to music video as well. Visuals with music. Scopatone. Has everybody ever heard of a Scopatone? This was a video jukebox in the 1940s that was across Europe. They had films that they would show, and these were in bars all over Europe. People like Neil Sedaka, the Exciters, various bands got, actually Serge Gainsbourg did like a lot of these, and that's how he got so much exposure early on. So, and of course, theater to film, musicals and shorts. Those are precursors as well. Elvis movies. I mean, Elvis movies have a lot to do with music video because he was in a situation and all of a sudden he's singing about what's going on. That's how it works. Concert films, and as well as Beatles movies. A Hard Day's Night is such an important piece of art when it comes to music video because there's so many music videos that have just copied Hard Day's Night. There's a situation, then they're singing, then they're being funny, there's speeded up film. It's a lot of the same kind of thing. The Rolling Stones and the Beatles also in the mid-60s decided that they were going to make films for different reasons. They were going to make music videos. The Beatles decided that they weren't going to tour anymore, so the record company had them do 2 films. They did Rain and Paperback Writer, which had performance and other parts to it. So it was a real precursor to the music video. Now, the 4 David Bowie shorts are really important. In 1972, Mick Rock, famous photographer, shot 4 shorts for David Bowie. For Johnny I'm Only Dancing, Jean Genie, Space Oddity, and one other that's escaping me at the moment. But the way they were shot and the way they were edited, so the cuts on the video are so fast that in 1972 it was considered to be extremely radical. But by the time the 80s came along and everything was being cut so fast, well, that was the precursor to this, and that was the reason that actually caught on so well. Now, that's up to 1972. That went pretty fast. So, music on television. Performance has always been the foundation of this. So consequently, you had Top of the Pops, American Bandstand, all these different programs that had people performing on television. Many times it was lip sync before they actually had a name for it, just to make things easier for the bands. But there were all these different programs across Europe that would allow people to have music videos on them later on. But there was one that started it all off, and that's Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody in 1976. The story of Bohemian Rhapsody is one that would take a really long time here, so I'm just going to give you the short version. Bohemian Rhapsody it's a ridiculous song with 3 parts that are insane. 3 totally different areas. It's really hard to perform live. So they came up with this idea that they would have the first part and the last part be concert, and then they would do something in the middle during the opera section. So they shot this crazy thing. The BBC said, no, we're not going to put that on the air because we don't air films. And Queen said, okay, well, we're not going to come perform it live. And they said, well, we're not going to show it. And they said, well, fine, then you're not going to get anything, and that's the end of it. The problem was they released the song went to #1, and all of a sudden you have a program called Top of the Pops that doesn't have the #1 song on it week after week after week. So they finally relented, and they did show Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm going to show you one small section of this that was significant because it has special effects that were actually created in camera. They took a separate lens to shoot the part where it's multiplied. And there's also a part where you see a streak go by. And that was just them taking the camera and pointing it into a monitor of its own. That's the only thing that happened there. That's the thing right there. Now, you have to understand, at the time this was very radical to do, and there's no post-production in this. They shot what they shot, they cut it together, and that was it. The director, Bruce Gowers, told me that they shot this in the morning, and then they went to the pub in the afternoon. That's how fast they did it. The UK versus the US when it comes to music videos, this is very significant. The UK had music video directors that all were coming out of art school, so they wanted to do something more creative that had more to do with abstract ideas. In the US, the music video directors who were in the US were all doing beer commercials, car commercials, etc. So you can see the difference. On the left, you see this is a band called Visage, and the song is called Fade to Grey. That's Stephen Strange. And the video is pretty much him and a lot of that type of idea going on. ZZ Top, girls and cars, that's all we got for you. I mean, also think about ZZ Top for a second. Imagine, this is like 1983, so imagine MTV. There's all this great stuff going on, and Warner Brothers says, you know, we got this band. Oh, are they a bunch of like good-looking guys and stuff? Well, they're 3 guys, 2 have beards. Okay, they play like, pop, is it like Wham or something like that? It's Texas blues songs. Okay. What do you want to do? Let's get some cars and some girls, make a video. Okay, that'll work. And it did. It was simple. MTV, August 1st, 1981. So significant because prior to this, there were not a lot of places that you could see what were considered to be music videos. Now think about this when I say it's an unprecedented opportunity. Imagine you're a budding filmmaker and you want to get any kind of job that you can. And all of a sudden there's this record company. They want to hire you to make a music video. It only has to be 3 minutes long. You don't have to worry about the sound because it's already got the song. They're going to give you $30,000, and the only direction you have is just make it look cool, man. All these music video directors that were working in 81, 82, 83 told me that was it. That's all they ever did. That's all they were ever told. Because once MTV was on the air, they were clamoring for content. They were trying to get things on the air. So anything was possible. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a significant music video. One that I always show when people are like, a lot of those things didn't make any sense. Like, well, okay, but because they didn't have to. This is Peter Gabriel, Shock the Monkey. The director, Brian Grant, told me that they talked a little bit about what they wanted to do, but there was never any talk about what it meant. This ushered in what was known as the second British invasion with bands like Duran Duran, Eurythmics, Culture Club, and yes, Phil Collins. Say what you want about Phil Collins, but let me tell you, that man was a massive star because of MTV, and he was one of the people who was really taking the piss out of everything. When there's an opportunity to do anything, Phil Collins thought it would be great to be funny. And so he had this persona where he was able to have all these hits. And people, they took it seriously. The man had multi-platinum albums. And when it came time to make another Genesis album, they made Invisible Touch, which is basically a Phil Collins solo record with other guys from the band playing. It was such a formula at that point. In the US is a different story on what we were doing. Not quite as artistic as you might imagine. Everybody here, if I talked about the trajectory of every one of these artists, we obviously would be here all night, but it's very important to significantly talk about what was important about each of them. Hall & Oates. Hall & Oates were such great pop craftsmen that their shitty videos didn't ruin their career. Michael Jackson, of course, Thriller, he was an innovator, he was so smart, he knew what had to be done. Madonna took sexual politics and power and turned it into something that had never been seen before. Pat Benatar tried to do it and didn't do it quite as well. Huey Lewis.
Yeah.
Okay, see, there are some people who have a problem with Huey Lewis because, well, it's basically a bar band that got a really good break when you think about it. But they were all over the place. That album, Sports, had 5 top 10 hits, and there were all music videos that were on MTV. The Boss, Born in the USA, was massive, and the videos for Born in the USA, I'm on Fire, and Dancing in the Dark. People don't realize, Dancing in the Dark, the video was directed by Brian De Palma. The videos for I'm on Fire and Born in the USA were directed by John Sayles. You know, he knew what he was doing when it came to this stuff. Van Halen. You can blame pop metal on Van Halen because nobody in heavy metal smiled before these guys decided to show up. Billy Joel. Billy Joel actually had some experimental videos early on when he did the album The Nylon Curtain. If you watch the video for Pressure, it looks like Poltergeist. It's really interesting. But then the next album, An Innocent Man, had videos for Tell Her About It, Uptown Girl, The Longest Time, Keeping the Faith, and they were all much more about performance and about his personality. Tom Petty. Tom Petty was actually an innovator when it came to music video and never got quite as much credit as he could have. Does anybody remember Don't Come Around Here No More? The video? Fantastic, yeah. Eating a cake made out of it's really odd. And of course, Prince. 1984 was Purple Rain. There was no escaping it. There was no getting away from Prince. And I mean, prior to that, 1999, huge. Controversy and Dirty Mind, all of these had music videos. His first music video was for I Want to Be Your Lover. It was fantastic. I mean, and all of these people here were doing it from the US side. But to tell you the truth, there were a lot of music video directors that were on the other side of the pond coming over to do this work. Russell Mulcahy had so many videos, but we'll get to him. He's a great director. Like I said, okay, music video was now an industry by 84, 85, 86. On the far left, that's Russell Mulcahy. He directed videos for Duran Duran and Elton John. At one point, he told me he was making at least 3 or 4 music videos a week, flying back and forth between LA and London. This is Bob Geraldi. He had a handful of videos, but they were all extremely significant. He directed Beat It for Michael Jackson. He directed Love is a Battlefield. He directed Say, Say, Say for Paul McCartney. He directed Hello for Lionel Richie, where he's saying, "Hello, is it me you're looking for?" to a blind girl. Down here at the bottom is just one person I wanted to point out. On the far left, at the bottom, that's Daniel Pearl. He was a director of photography who worked on a couple of videos with Russell Mulcahy, went with him to a Christmas party in LA, and met all the most significant directors at the time. The music videos in the 1980s, at least 25% of all of those videos were shot by this guy, and it's an amazing, because he was really, really good. He would steal from other things. When he shot Every Breath You Take for the Police, he stole the black and white version, the way they shoot it, from an earlier Tom Petty thing that he had shot. So at this time, there was a way to make a living and have an actual career in music video. By this time, we did have some real breakouts. Peter Gabriel, Sledgehammer, a fascinating thing. And when you think about it, there's no computer-generated anything in that video. It's all stop motion. It was weeks of shooting. Of course, the late, great George Michael, who from Wham's Make It Big to Faith to Listen Without Prejudice. I mean, it's hard to believe that he's 24 years old right there. I mean, come on. And of course, Janet Jackson coming into her own with the album Control, but by Rhythm Nation, she was a real force to be reckoned with on MTV. Hip hop. I could talk about hip hop for hours and hours and hours, but it's really important that we just talk about the video evolution here. The early adopters were Run DMC and Public Enemy. And actually here in New York, does anybody know Video Music Box? Yeah. Video Music Box was a public access show and still is. Featured hip-hop videos very, very early on. It was Ralph McDaniels and Lionel C. Martin. Lionel C. Martin went on to be a music video director who ended up doing all the most significant videos for Belle Biv DeVoe, Whitney Houston, etc. Now, what happened as hip-hop evolved, not to oversimplify it, but there did become two sort of camps here. One that was supposed to still be, as Chuck D says, the news of the street, and that's Ice-T, NWA, and the gangster rap on one side. On the other side, you had a more pop level with Will Smith, The Fresh Prince, MC Hammer, and the whole Delicious Vinyl end of things, which was amazing. I mean, that was an independent label that had Tone Loc and Young MC with #1 hits as a result of their videos on MTV. Pop metal, Poison. All of a sudden, MTV was overrun with the LA metal scene, which is now all pop, and had plenty of female appeal at this point. Because if you've ever seen metal prior to '84, it ain't for women, let me tell you. But these guys, between Poison and Cinderella and Bon Jovi and all this, they pretty much took over things by '86, '87, '88. And we were all thrilled at the arrival of the power ballad, also known on videos as the Tour Blues video, which, as you know, they're missing their girl, they're asleep, they're slow. I mean, there's a whole lot of slow motion on stage while they're... A lot of that, remember? A lot of that. But all of a sudden, all that pop metal stuff didn't really fly anymore because people were ready to move on. Actually, it's interesting because just 2 months before Nevermind came out, Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue did an interview where he said, we're now at the third stage, looks like the third Xerox of a Xerox of metal, and it's going to be over, and something new is going to come, it's going to take everything's place. And it was. The Seattle sound, as well as what was known as alternative, REM, The Cure, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And the significance of these particular bands is that they did not have immediate success. All of these guys were on their 6th, 7th, 8th album by the time they hit it big with their MTV videos. Previous to being called alternative, it was also called, in the words of Beavis and Butthead, college music. 1993, here we are. How am I doing on time? Doing okay? Yep. The end of an era. There were 3 things significant that happened. Guns N' Roses' album, Use Your Illusion, had 3 music videos that came out that all cost close to $1 million apiece. Don't Cry, November Rain, and then the last one, which I'm going to show you a little bit of, called Estranged. There's an aircraft carrier. There's dolphins. And there's a scene that you're going to see with Slash, which is one of the most dangerous things that they ever attempted on film at that time. And the director, Andy Morahan, told me if we try to do that, something like that today, insurance, safety, and the police would basically say there's absolutely no way you're going to shoot that. And interestingly enough, Slash doesn't actually remember shooting it at all. How he is actually playing those notes, I don't know, because he can't hear the music. There's anyway. And if you want to catch up with what's going on with me and things I'm writing about, I'm at musicvideotimemachine.com. Thank you guys very, very much.
Go to nerdnight.com to find a Nerd Night event near you. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for our latest presentation.